it's been a while since we finally finished the document, but I do want to discuss my final thoughts about it, chat. So, again, it has been a little bit. We did get through everything in the document. I know that we were all like, oh my god, like trying to get through everything, but ultimately we did actually end up finishing all of it. So I want to share with you my notes about everything and just my final thoughts, chat, about the Cinder document and my overall thoughts. I'm sorry it took me this much time to actually get through this, but the reason being is because I wanted to make sure that I put everything together, at least for me, in the best way possible, organize all my notes, etc., etc. So, anyway, chat, I am going to be making this a YouTube video. Everybody, do me a favor to, say hi to YouTube. We are going to be making this a YouTube video, and I will be sticking that over there. So if you ever want to know my thoughts, maybe you just, missed it, whatever, it is going to be right here. So, yeah, everybody say hi, YouTube. We're going to be putting this on YouTube. So, all right, here we go, guys. So, for everybody, first off, I want to say, for everybody that came by and actually discussed the document with me, thank you so much. Holy shit, it has been an absolutely insane thing to go through with all of you. I've just been like, I'm so thankful for all of you for just sitting down with me and actually going through it. I gotta say, probably one of the most challenging things I think I've probably ever done since I started VTubing. This particular thing was just, it was a lot. It was a lot, chat. I will not lie to you. It was quite a lot. It took a lot out of me. But again, going through all of the document, all 1,000 pages, talking about it with you guys was literally, honestly, one of the highlights of my career. I enjoyed it. I really love talking with you guys. I felt like I did a pretty decent job, at least trying to, be as non-biased as possible. I don't bias, but, I do want to point out at least inconsistencies. So, what I want to do today, chat, is I want to discuss, obviously, my final notes, talk about the document, talk about Nanoless, talk about Bow, talk about all the important points, talk about quotes made by Cinder, and ultimately point out what this document did, what it means, everything, chat. So, without further ado, here we go, chat. So, first up, final notes here. So, the overall document, as far as the document goes, right, chat, on how it was written, I gotta tell you, it was not written well. It was, in fact, it was kind of very hard to follow along in a lot of spots and included a lot of non-relevant information. So it was very hard to just read, right? So not that this should come as a surprise to anybody, but yes, the document was way too long. Surprise, chat! 1,000 pages is way too long. While the specific and divided sections were nice, ultimately, again, I felt like it was just way too long. A lot of repeated stuff. You just lose the main point of information doing that, right? So while the divided sections are appreciated, the constant repeated information, screenshots, and non-relevant points take away from the overall argument. An example would be the Silvervale and Cinder beach backgrounds. There was a part where she included that was just not even needed. That was completely pointless. It didn't help prove anything or back her argument. That particular point was just not needed, right? So we are also going to talk about the overall argument a little later down. So, important points to consider about Nanoless. Red's inclusion of Bow and Cotton. Red's inclusion of Bow and Cotton in his exclusivity deal when Nano was in January 2025. Red constantly asked for updates on other people's models and release dates vary up in Nanoless's business, often price for information on people. And as recently as on Silvervale on February 20th, Red actually found out about Lily's model and immediately followed up about shared rumors with Nano. So again, I will point out there were multiple times where he would pry for information from Nanoless, and then once he got that information, let's say it's about somebody that he didn't like or they felt like they had competition with, he would normally start sharing drama, rumors, their problems with that particular person, which again, chat, is very problematic, right? Just because you have an issue with somebody doesn't mean you need to share that with somebody else, especially with somebody else that is working with them professionally. So certainly the up in their business was just unacceptable, right? Red influenced Nano on January 15th, talking about drama, and a few people would rather not be able to have a model from you. So again, this is just a straight, proving influence right here. Like, few people, we'd rather not be able to have a model from you. Talking to Nanoless, Red telling artist number one, how was somebody he considered competition while discussing exclusivity on the same day as his deal with Nano. In the case of the exclusivity deal with Nano, hey everybody, just a quick reminder, if you've been enjoying this video, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me a ton. Okay, back to the video. Red uses we a lot when he's talking about bows, so it seemed like Cinder also backed how Red felt. Cinder not only wasn't aware of this, but knew she didn't agree with me about what I was saying. I feel like this right here, this whole part right here is such, I'm gonna put this in quotation marks, is actually insane, right? For Red to admit that he literally talked about something, knew that Cinder didn't agree with it, and made her not aware of it because they didn't agree about it is insane, right? Red does not need to work with Cinder in any official capacity at all. He literally lied to her. This is an employee lying to your boss, right? That is absolutely unacceptable. This is literally very important business related stuff. And for you to keep and withhold that information is absolutely insane. So, and yet he's still a mod. Exactly. So I does not need to work in any capacity with Cinder at all. So Nanoless said she would blame her manager, which is Mia, for the cancellation of the models. Again, that was very unprofessional on Nanoless's part. Nano should have put her foot down multiple times about the drama talk. Nano did, however, separate herself from the drama later on 11/25/2023. While she did eventually do this, put her foot down, it was far too late. He should have also looked into what was being said without fully believing it. So again, Red and Cinder should have not influenced Nano, but also at the same time, Nano should have put her foot down more and actually looked into what was being said. So she does own that fault as well, right? Red influences Nano's perception at Silvervale, which potentially played a part in Nanoless's decision-making. Red sprinkled influence before Nano sent Silver a cancellation message, and obviously the document tried to deflect away from that. There were multiple times where Red's like, oh, well, I'm not gonna stop you, but you should definitely do this, right? He's literally influencing her, right? Pushing along the stuff here. So he definitely at least minimally influenced them, right? The document does try to deflect from this fact, right? Nanoless acknowledges that Silvervale and Cinder drama was something she took into consideration to show what Red had said in the past influence her. There is literally a part where Nano says, yeah, the stuff that you shared with me is literally something I took into consideration. How could you, Cinder and Red, say that you didn't influence her when she literally acknowledges that that drama was something she took into consideration for her decisions? It's crazy to me. Nano's message 8 days later after canceling Silvervale's comm is a good luck that does show some fairness and regret. Now, again, I know that Nanoless ultimately did bring up the exclusivity deal. I know that she did go through with canceling it. However, she did cancel it, 8 days later. So it is a good look for her, right? Shows regret. That is one thing I will at least give her, right? Red influenced Nano's decision to cancel Mouse Model, but they didn't bring up the idea. So again, even though they didn't bring up a cancel Mouse Model, there was a part where, Nano's talking about it. And Red certainly does not fight against it, right? He just says, like, yeah, should be fine. Go find somebody else, right? Which, again, is influencing her. Red never told me, Cinder, that Bao and Cotton ever talked about are included in their agreement. I do believe this. On Cinder's part, I do believe that Cinder did not know about this. However, to continue to include Red in your surroundings, right, professionally, even as a mod, I think it's unacceptable considering that this went down and you're acting like it's okay, Absolutely crazy to me. Nano went to the hospital due to stress and had Akira step in. I know there were a lot of questions about this Akira person. Mia was probably busy attending to Nano, or Nano was fed up after prime messages about Lily from Red, which prompted the Akira stuff. That is my best bet on what happened. Again, this is just my thoughts, chat. I'm not sure 100%, but this is more than likely what happened, right? If you're wondering about the Akira stuff. Nanoless was unprofessional several times, sharing other client information and pictures, as well as Bingo Kid with gossiping. So again, chat, ultimately, Nano was not innocent throughout this document, right? If anything, this document proved that Nano was not innocent, as we thought before, right? To a greater degree of innocent, right? I would say that we weren't really sure how innocent. This document definitely painted her in a pretty bad light, admittedly. So Nano also brought up exclusivity first, which we didn't know about. That was excluded in her original information, which is a big deal. It asked Red to pay to cancel for them on 9/24. Nano makes big mistakes by not being transparent, bringing up exclusivity, and ultimately Nano did go on to cancel everything. So again, I feel like Nano's biggest role in this was they were not transparent and they were not straightforward about everything that happened, right? Does it change what Cinder and Red did? No. But it does add additional context that you also played into it as well. So Nanoless is not entirely innocent in this, but if anything, the screenshots I feel like do prove that she was influenced, right? But at the same time, she does have some things she needs to answer to as well. So one thing to know, everybody involved, including like Silvervale, Lily, anybody that was part of the conversations between Red, has forgiven Nano. So that is one thing that you should consider, chat. Everybody forgave Nano already. So important points to consider about Bao. Red tried to justify assumptions about Bao in the document. Red's ending section on Bao does him absolutely no favors. I feel like throughout this document, we see a lot of parts where they're like, I heard these assumptions, and I know they're not been true. I gossip about it, but anyway, here's why the assumptions are probably real. Like, bro, they were assumptions anyway about your perception. So why would you even share that information if you weren't even sure? So they try to justify a lot of their assumptions, like, oh, we're here with their actions, so it's got to be true, right? A lot of speculation. So I don't want to point this out. This whole section with Bao just really did not do Red any favors. Not that Red's going to get any favors anyway throughout this document, but you get my point. Important points to consider about Shylily. So Shylily pulled everyone together to organize, plan, write, and post the documents that ended in my cancellation. Again, this is all speculation, right, chat? There's no solid proof that was provided, but I do want to also go to, another point I'm going to include in here. Let's say that Shylily did get everybody together to provide all this information, at least with Nanoless, right? We pretty much know she talked to Nanoless, but she got everybody together, she reached out to the people affected, etc., and asked, hey, do you want to come out with a statement about this stuff because you're included? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with getting everybody together, discussing the information at hand, coming up with all of your receipts, and sharing that information that is relevant, right? Again, this is one of my biggest points about this document. They try to paint everybody that gets together to talk about it as this horrible, horrible person, right? But what is so wrong with talking about information and sharing it and getting your receipts together? There's nothing wrong with that. I'm really just... I'm confused by why this is framed as bad, because even if she got together to organize all the receipts and stuff, she even reached out to Spite and was like, hey, like, you're included on this. If you want to make a statement, you can. Here's the stuff. It's not some grand, like, theme to cancel you. It's just people talking about how they were affected, and they have every right to do that. So one thing also in the document, Cinder goes on to, paint everybody that had a problem with her as this horrible person, right? Well, one point of contention that we were wondering about was the V-card stuff. She said, oh, well, Shylily's really upset with me about the V-card stuff. Well, if you actually look at the messages, Shylily was actually fine with Cinder accidentally leaking the V-card information. It really didn't seem like she had a problem at all with that particular part. Cinder proves how paranoid she is about Lily. If views reads as transactional, again, the whole name thing. You gotta say my name. I give her a big fat raid. She didn't acknowledge me. I mean, look, guys, like, raids are not transactional. They're just support. I don't understand why it matters if you made a big raid or not, right? Like, this again, trying to treat it very transactionally is wrong, in my opinion. Shylily confirmed she did not participate. It later collapsed because she knew something was up, or Cinder rubbed her the wrong way. We don't know exactly why, but she did decide to leave some of those future collabs because she knew something was up, right? So about the raid argument, the not seeing my name, does that really prove any intention, right? There was a lot of those clips she included where, Lily was busy, or she thanked the pyro pups. I mean, it was still a perfectly fine raid, thank you, right? Also, Shylily had a prior issue. Why is this important to denouncing the things Cinder and Red did to undermine others and take away opportunities by influencing Nano? So again, like, there's so many points that Cinder and Red try to include in this document, but it doesn't take away from the main issue, right? You're not denouncing what you did and how you undermined others and took away potential opportunities from others by influencing Nano, right? Even if Shylily had some type of issue with Cinder before him, that would not justify the gossip and influence towards Nano. I think this is a very strong statement that holds a lot of truth about stuff, right? Like, even if Shylily had an issue with Cinder, let's say you just didn't like her, right? That doesn't justify the fact that you're gonna sit there and gossip about somebody and influence somebody else, right? If you have an issue with them beforehand, nobody has to like you, right? Important points to consider about Silvervale. So this section is a little long. So one thing to point out is there was a constant reference to this collab, right? She asked for a collab. Well, it wasn't actually a collab. It was never actually a collab. There was never a collab with Silver and Aru. It's actually just an off-stream hangout. No proof of harassment was ever provided, only comparisons. This is probably one of my biggest points. Cinder said that she was harassed multiple times, over and over and over and over, about comparisons between her and Silvervale. Now, I will say that Nanners and Silvervale did say that there were comparisons between the two, right? But again, no proof of this harassment was ever provided, right? And now, it's one thing to get compared, right? Harassment is next level. And again, no proof of that was ever provided by Cinder. So I very much doubt the level she claims herself as a victim of this harassment actually happened, right? I mean, I'm sure she got compared, but again, where was this harassment? Cinder knew about Silvervale's Wolf model and her Kami model as well, which was her first models, right? But instead of changing her model to something different to avoid that comparison, Cinder decided to follow through on the Hellhound model. Sounds good, right? We all knew that. Cinder was like, hey, my original Tashi model is very close to Silvervale, so I want to go in a different direction, right? You know, and I want to do Hellhound. So she decided to stick with that. She continues to blame Silvervale for her choice that she chose to keep a model that is in line with Silvervale, right? So she drew the own comparison and then also blamed Silvervale for that comparison. It's kind of crazy. So, you know, if you're so worried about the comparison, why not just completely change your model? But she went through with it, but she was the one that decided to go through with it and that design and stuff. And I'm sorry you got compared. I think that's wrong. You decided for that, right? Like, I'm sorry that you're getting compared. You obviously didn't decide for that, but why are you blaming Silvervale for a choice that you made yourself, right? Cinder accuses Silvervale being inspired with the tweet, the booba bouncing one, but they basically shared absolutely no similarities. So, like, no, not even the same song, not even the same animations. Like, this was a wild accusation on this one. As of August 14th, 2024, Cinder admits she was competitive with Silvervale. And on January 15th, 2025, admits she knew it was okay with taking away opportunities from Silvervale. Red badmouthed Silvervale as recently as of April 11th this year. So again, this just shows how recent a lot of this was treated, right? Oh, you're my competition. Oh, you know, I know we're taking away opportunities from you. This is recent, chat. I mean, it is now October 26th, right? Do you really change as a person within 9 months? Red badmouthing Silver, do you really change in 6 months? No, you don't. Cinder tries to downplay Silvervale's live stream statement by stating she should have been straightforward, not realizing nuance about public callouts in awkward situations. So, again, Cinder tries to call out Silvervale's live stream. A lot of her statements had said, well, Silvervale could have been more straightforward about not wanting to be friends with me. There's a lot of nuance in that, right? Calling her out publicly, you're just even typing a message like, I don't want anything to do with you, is a very strong statement, right? As public figures, that could cause a lot of problems, right? A lot of backlash, you have a lot of pressure. So normally it's better just to distance yourself, right? However, through this, Cinder could not take the hint at any given point in time, and instead she shifts the blame onto Silvervale. Well, you should have been more straightforward with me about it, right? Well, that's not entirely true. You should also be able to take a hint as well. So if you're going to put blame on Silvervale for this, you would also technically own as much responsibility as well for the other side of that conversation. But again, I think mostly Cinder owns the responsibility of the guilt when it comes to Silvervale anyway, right? So there is a statement here from Red, right? So, and like, I've been contacted by other artists after Silvervale. I've been contacted by my other artists after my doc came out, and I guess it's really glad that I put that part in there about her worrying that she was saying things about me, because that was true, apparently. They told me that she had told them that I hated her and I was this malicious person and I was so mean I just hated her so much. So again, Silvervale's talking about how artists were like, we were told that you hated them. Like, usually immediately right after doing a project or art piece, or something to me that got traction and she didn't like it. And they told me that hearing that made them less inclined to work with me because, again, they think I'm this evil, terrible person. Because why would she say that if it wasn't true? So I'm going to reread this, chat. Listen to this. These other artists. And they told me that hearing that made them less inclined to work with me because they think I'm this evil, terrible person. So this literally, chat, like, why would you lie about somebody and this happened so much? Like, if it wasn't just Nano, it was so many other people. So this literally shows Red and Cinder's influence on other artists and contractors, chat. Literally, they said, straight up. And they told me that hearing that made them less inclined to work with me. So again, this is showing that Red and Cinder's words had influence on artists and contractors. This did go on to affect Silvervale. So again, you know, Cinder's like, well, yeah, I didn't really do anything that took away opportunities, right? But this actually proves the opposite of that point there. So 4 points to consider about Spite. Cinder admits that she talked negatively about Spite to other creators and admits some art could be compared to Spite. She's talking about her earlier t-shirt art. She knew this, so moved forward with it. And again, she talked negatively about Spy to other creators. So not only do we have admittance here of, I've been talking negatively about, people I consider competition, but we're also okay with talking negatively about people that literally never crossed your lane, had nothing to do with you, wanted nothing to do with you, and you just talk shit about them. Sinder proves patterns of jealousy and insecurity. He also falsely claims dual colors were not available at wrong dates, which I showed you in my VOD. She was like, oh, like this is exclusive to me. Nobody else was doing this. That was a lie. And I showed you guys that during that particular stream during this fight section. If you want to know more of the specifics about that, I did provide some screenshots that is in the VODs on my original video. Submitted to me by Sinder to consider here in chat. So this document will not absolve either of us of all wrongdoings, and it isn't trying to. So, while some accountability is taken through the document, right, it feels like the point of this document evolved into shifting a refusal of prior claims. So again, she says that, it's not absolving us of stuff and it isn't trying to. I fundamentally disagree with that statement. I feel like there were so many times where you tried to explain yourself, shove stuff off, etc., right? I think this is absolutely just false. The document evolved into you trying to refute stuff, so I just disagree with this statement. Shylily orchestrated everything, right? So I believe the word orchestrated is used in a negative connotation to imply some manipulation. I would agree that Lily did talk to several others after reading the information provided by Nanoless and contacted as mentioned in the screenshots they provided. So again, I really don't like this. She's like, oh, Shylily orchestrated this. Well, just because you talk to people that were negatively impacted, that doesn't mean that's a bad thing, right? You're doing your due diligence. So applying this negative connotation is just unfair, right? Silvervale lied. During the Silvervale section, Silvervale did get the timeline and information about her mom retweeting the art wrong, although it was very slight. However, chat, this is such a small detail for in Silvervale lied. It does not refute all of her other points that Silvervale had. This, however, would not take away from her founded claims that Silvervale had against Sinder, right? So, again, I really feel like this is wrong to be like, oh, well, Silvervale lied, right? Yeah, okay, she did get this part wrong. But it doesn't mean that she's just a liar straight up about everything. So, again, Sinder says the line, I was not obsessed with Silvervale. Do I even need to add comments about this line? Silver blamed me for all the misfortunes in her career when I did nothing to her. And the one time I agreed to try to do something, it didn't affect her. So, this line to me, again, when we read through it, stood out to me a lot. Silver blamed me for all her misfortunes in her career but I did nothing to her. Well, I mean, it's not entirely true, right? She just pointed out the things she did wrong, but I did nothing to her. And the one time I had tried to agree doing something, so wait, you contradict yourself, but I did nothing to her. And the one time I agreed to try to do something. So which one is it? You did nothing, or was it just one time? It didn't affect her. And I just actually showed you my Silvervale statement talking about other artists, being hesitant to work with her because of what Red and Sinder had said. This actually just proves that. And just because it didn't affect her now, doesn't mean that it couldn't affect her later. And the things that you said and did were not wrong. Because ultimately what Red and Sinder did was wrong. So be like, oh, well, I put a bomb in your car, but it didn't explode. So it's fine. Like, no, of course not. Like, it's the act of you doing it, That's what's problematic about it. Oh, well, I was going to shoplift $100, but I only shoplifted $5. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you still did something really horrible. Silvervale said herself that she got upset because of the comparisons made between us. But instead of just being friendly to one another, she decided to put in her blinders and ignore it because she couldn't bring herself to show me the kindness I showed her at every turn. I would not qualify kindness as attempting to take away opportunities, but also right here, right? But instead of being friendly to one another, she decided to put on blinders and ignore it because she couldn't bring herself to show me kindness. Silvervale is allowed to deal with the problems however she wants. She doesn't have to resolve your problems, right? She's allowed to resolve her own problems in the best way that she sees fit. So again, I really don't like this statement, right? She got upset because of the comparisons, but, she should have been friendly to me. We could have resolved it. You do realize she could just resolve it by herself, right? Like, the comparisons, like, she can just do her own thing. Statement here, I did want to destroy Silvervale or her career, and I didn't try to. Do I need to add to anything with this? I want to ask Nano not to make models her anymore because of the comparison between us and harassment. I got over it. Again, you never proved that. And because of the way Silvervale acted towards me for years for no reason. Again, we showed the reason why Silvervale acted the way that she did, right? But on top of that, You absolutely wanted to. You treated her as competition. You tried to undermine her opportunities. Being like, I didn't want to destroy her. I just want Nano to not make models her anymore. That is destroying her career. You're locking her into a model. Like, again, I'm going to make a point that I made early on when we read this is, taking away the opportunities for future models can be really, really devastating because the current model you have can never be upgraded, right? You can't get a new outfit for it, etc. You just gotta go find somebody new. And this is fundamentally just, this right here in itself will hurt your career. And I didn't try to. That is just false. Cinder says she understands the responsibility to her manager, Red, but contradicts herself in future statements. While the actions of your manager, Red, may not be your own, and you are not privy to every action or conversation, you are responsible for him as his employer/boss. Cinder also says, I would list the false accusations here, but there's been such a ridiculous amount at this point. I don't even know where to start. This feels weird, considering that you made a 1,000-page document, but why wouldn't you include it? She's very stickler to include all the information, but then, like, I just, a random part, she'll be like, nah, I'm not gonna do it. Like the harassment part, this part, like, included. Nothing was black and white. None of these actions were motivated by jealousy, envy, greed, or being malicious for the sake of it. You actively tried to take away opportunities from other people. That's literally being malicious. You treated people as competition. That's absolutely motivated by jealousy, envy, and greed. All three of them. Nanoless was not manipulated. We did not manipulate Nano. So maybe manipulate is too strong of a word, chap. We kind of went more for influence. I think influence is a better word. But, yeah, maybe manipulate is too strong of a word, but the emotional tugs that Brad would put in the messages, right? Oh, you're a favorite. You're the best model, mama. Cinder wouldn't be Cinder without Nanoless. And whispering in her ear about how her current clients had drama with Cinder was unprofessional and ultimately meant to affect those people, right? Again, if you whisper in their ear about like, oh, well, I'm going to be doing something for Silvervale. Oh, well, have you heard this drama that we have with Silvervale? Of course that affects them. Of course that influences them. In the document, Cinder claims accountability for guilt-tripping Nano twice. That is manipulation. So they say that Nanoless was not manipulated. We didn't manipulate Nano. But she also takes accountability for guilt-tripping her. But you emotionally manipulated her. So, again, you say you didn't manipulate, but you admitted to manipulating her. So how am I supposed to take what you say in good faith? Red did not slander Shylily. The things Red told Nano were true to what I was actually experiencing with her. So again, this is used multiple times, chat. Well, this is what we're experiencing, so, we didn't make it up. It's not slander, right? Just because this is your perception of what is going on does not make a reality or justify sharing this information. Let's see. Oh, yeah, no, Nano definitely withheld information, which wasn't cool, but let's even say that the perception is real, right? It still doesn't justify you sharing that information with somebody and gossiping, especially right after they told you that, oh, guess what? We're going to be doing this stuff with them. Shylily was the one who told Nano she was being manipulated, and she was the only other person involved who pushed that claim to the public. So again, Shylily was the one that told Nano she was being manipulated. Shylily cannot tell Nano that she was manipulated or force her to be manipulated when she was already manipulated. Like, this is a pointless statement. You can see the proof that Nano was at least minimally influenced, right? I think it's wrong to blame it on Shylily because it's just true, right? Whether Shylily confirmed it or not, she was still influenced, right? Nano has her own mind, so it doesn't really matter if she was influenced, in my opinion. I'm going to try to take that statement in good faith, because I'm going to say something really quick here. So, Nano has her own mind, and it doesn't really matter if she was influenced. So, number one, absolutely. She owns the ultimate end of her reactions, right? If somebody said, hey, blah, 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 and you go through with it, that's your fault for doing that, right? But it absolutely matters that she was influenced because the act of influencing her on the other side is problematic. So it does matter a lot that she was influenced, actually, because the intention shown, the actual reason that they went through and influenced her, right, was nefarious. So yes, Nano does send her actions to that, but the influence is very, very important, actually. So Nano was influenced. I bring up the point again. Why would it matter if multiple people got together and talked about what was going on? So here's the important points to consider and my final thoughts, chat. So here we go. Sinder goes on to say, no one involved tried contacting me beforehand. So do you as a reader, as a viewer, as a supporter, whatever, find Bao and Shylily's reasonings enough for them not to talk to her privately beforehand? So again, Bao and Shylily's reasoning was, it was so bad, we already saw the pattern of it, we wanted to come out with it because we felt like we could resolve it privately. Allegedly, Shylily said they tried to do something beforehand, We don't know about that, but again, nobody involved trying to contact me privately before him. The user reader found Shylily's reasonings enough for them not to talk to her privately before him. For me, I feel like everything should be resolved privately, but I do understand what Bao and Shylily's reasonings were. So Cinder has been extremely back and forth with the status of Red, her manager boyfriend. First he was fired, then he returned as manager, now he's demoted to Twitch mod. I think this shows a lot of uncertainty. He's not really sure how to deal with her problems as a whole, right? And we saw that was evident by her initial reaction. I think she's just very, I don't know a better word, I think she's just immature. Red has shown no growth in his mindset about models and how more makes them less unique, which poses issues for how it reflects on Cinder. So again, Red stated in the document, I wanted to preserve the value of existing nano models like Cinders, and the more models Nanos accepted, the more reoccurring clients she'd have, meaning she'd have less time for any projects we may ask her for. So this was a note he added. This was not like a screenshot. This was a note that he added, right? So again, it just really shows he hasn't grown past a really important point, and it reflects horribly on Cinder, right? Him just existing in her space reflects horribly on her. Cinder attempts to prove that multiple people had a problem or had it out for her, but tries to draw connections to disprove themselves. For example, Cinder states that Shylily was upset about the V-cards, but looking at that DM, it was untrue. This is pretty evident throughout the document. She tries to draw these points all together, connect the dots, but a lot of them just don't prove her point. Cinder tries to paint Lily as bad for releasing merch. A week later, after her cancellation, it makes accusations that Lily tried to replace and copy her model. Later, she goes on to draw a comparison on Silvervale's beach background. Again, this is all just completely unneeded. She's like, oh my god, she's capitalizing on my cancellation. Like, anybody that talked about your stuff technically capitalized on your cancellation, right? Are you gonna come after me? Like, this was just completely unneeded, right? On the whole ending section of the breakdown makes extremely strong speculation and accusation with absolutely no proof, chat. Multiple times, Cinder justifies parts as not lying, because they say in the document they told what they thought was true. On top of this, they also justified talking bad-mouthing, but also justifying it as not lying. So the thing is let's say hypothetically something is true about somebody, right? Let's say that they're just not a good person. Why would you tell somebody that is working with that person professionally that they're a bad person? You don't do that. Like, fundamentally, professionally, you don't do that. And again, they try to justify so many parts as like, oh, well, we're doing this, but we're not lying because what we were told was thought to be true. Just because you thought it was true does not mean it was actually true. Like, your perception is not reality all the time, unfortunately. So, chat, here's the really important parts. And again, if you disagree with me, let me know. But here we go, final thoughts. Cinder is a deep-rooted insecurity issue, which caused her ultimately to make extremely bad business decisions. While an argument can be made about the level of Red's influence on her, they both hold the responsibility of their actions. At the beginning of this document, Cinder states the burden of proof lies with the accuser, not the accused, right? He makes a lot of accusations throughout the document, but more often than not, she actually fails to meet that burden of proof herself. So again, she says the burden of proof lies with the accuser, not the accused. But again, she accuses a lot of things and never backs her own statements multiple times. So it's very interesting. This is like the tagline of her document, but she doesn't even uphold her own tagline, right? As far as it goes with Silvervale, twisting the no thank you, not interested into she attacked me for not saying yes is manipulation, as seen through the document in the Silvervale section. The Silvervale exclusion in the deal is a huge part of what Cinder and Red are most guilty of. Again, this is a huge thing right here. We saw the influence they applied to Nano, but again, the exclusivity deal that they put specifically on Silvervale because they didn't like her, whatever, had problems, etc., is a huge part of what they're guilty of. Some unfair comparisons were being made by fans between Cinder and Silvervale, and vice versa, as admitted by Nanoless and Silvervale. However, Cinder goes on to claim through the document that she was harassed, but never showed any proof of this. While this document states that it will not absolve either of us for all wrongdoings and isn't trying to, it evolved into attempts of shifting blame and post all accountability. Speculation tries to bring together non-important points that ultimately do not defend from the main points of everything. The actions put Cinder and Red to influence Nanoless. Nanoless is not entirely in the clear either, as they omitted key points in their conversation, like how they were the first to bring up exclusivity. While again, this does not take away from the main point of influence, it does shift some blame back to Nanoless and brings up the question of their ultimate responsibility. patterns of main character syndrome, our projects, our deadlines, throughout, again, I read very much talking about like what affected our stuff, not really considering analysts and everybody else that might be affected, right? Cinder admits to lying about spite. I lied about not knowing he spoke to her about in my apology to avoid talking about it. Yet we're supposed to believe the rest of her claims are in good faith. It was only the one time I lied about everything to Nano here as well. So again, Cinder admits that she lied about stuff. It was the only time I lied about anything to Nano. So she lied about stuff to Nano. She lied about stuff about Spike. She lies about stuff going on with Silvervale, right? Or at least misrepresents it, right? She tries to speculate about stuff with very strong speculation, I might add. With no proof, she says she was harassed. She doesn't provide any proof of that. How am I in good faith supposed to believe this document when there's so many lies in it? I mean, again, a lying about spite is really, really f***ed up. For me, this is like, I don't want anything to do with you anymore type deal. Like, this is absolutely horrible, chap. And again, she talked to multiple people. She admitted this, talking about like how she didn't like spite. Again, this is horrible, right? This is horrible. Red does not need to be involved with her brand anymore in any capacity. I don't think there's anybody in this room that would contend that fact. I think we would all agree on that. Of course, another point to make, Cinder did cancel herself. She did not commit some of the more heinous acts that we have read in other documents, like, doxing, PDF, etc., right? And she fully deserves a second chance with enough time and growth. However, chat, all right, I want to make this very clear. I do not believe this document shows that she has grown, and instead shows that she spent the last 5 months obsessing over the fact instead. Actions speak louder than words, right? If you say that, you're ready to move on and you're going to do better, I don't think that this document is any proof of that whatsoever. Cinder goes on to say, I forgive her for what she chose to do. I think it's talking about Bao in particular, but it shows me as a viewer, as a reader, right? She views herself as the victim rather than at least somebody who owns equal responsibility. And in most facts, she owns all the responsibility. But again, I forgive her for what she chose to do. Well, the thing is you're not really the victim here. I mean, with Nanoless, yeah, there's more to it, right? But with everything else, this is just your insecurity. It is more than likely that Cinder knew a lot more than she admits to. The document is full of mentions from herself about the depths of discussion he had with Redacted, her manager, alleged disagreements and arguments with him, and the controversial subjects he discussed with him. So while I do agree that she didn't know everything, and there are certain points that I do agree she didn't know everything, I think she knows a lot more than she admits to. So ultimately, chat, this document does not help absolve Cinder of the original main issues. In fact, with the additional context, I believe it makes it look worse. The Nanoless section was the only section that truly provided any weight, while the rest is speculatory and draws conclusions from feelings and emotions, not facts. It has shown the influence they had on Nano, took away opportunities and or future ones as well, chat. And that right there is my wrap-up of this Cinder stuff. I swear to God, if I ever have to talk about Cinder again, I'm going to explode. But I feel like I don't have anything else to add, chat. I've spoken about it for literally 7 streams, at least 5 hours apiece, talked about it, discussed this in great detail about what was going on with everything. I just don't know if there's anything else to add. I think that these notes are pretty much what I was able to pull from everything. And these are my final thoughts. Again, I want to make this clear. So for all the Pyro Pups, for all the people out there that, are Cinder supporters, for all the people that are, Shylily haters, I want to say this really quick. So I think that when you look at this document, it's very, very clear what is what, right? Nanoless is not entirely innocent, but this document does not support Cinder. It is a crash out. Besides the Nanoless part, it's a bad look. There's a lot of bitterness. There's a lot of spite, not spite the streamer, but spite the feeling, the emotion. It's very vindictive. It's a very just ill-willed document, I feel like. Reading what the thing she had to say without any proof. She's like, everybody has it out for me, but she doesn't take any responsibility for a lot of her own actions. In fact, she tries to disprove a lot of them. So what I want to say to everybody, right? If you're a Pyro Pup and you support Cinder, or you're a Cinder supporter, you're not a Pyro Pup, whatever, right? That is fine. I don't judge you. I don't understand you, right? Because I don't see how you would want to support her, considering you can prove that she's lied about multiple things, talked shit about people, lied about stuff, etc., right? I personally do not find that to be somebody I would want to support. But if you want to support them, you do whatever the you want. I'm not here to judge you, and that's perfectly fine. You do whatever you want. If it makes you happy to support her, that's totally fine. I do question it, but again, I'm not judging you. I have a hard time empathizing with that, right? what I will say though is the people that are out there that I've seen that are like, oh well, now we need to harass Shylily or harass Cinder and stuff like that. I'm gonna make this clear, chat. I do not support that type of actions. You don't need to harass anybody. If you don't want anything to do with Cinder anymore, block her. If you don't want anything to do with Shylily, block her. You know what I mean? Like, just if you have a problem with people, just move on. Stop making it this absolutely like huge like problem that you have to continue to bother people about. Like, just block and move on. Again, I don't understand why you have a problem with Lily, of course, but maybe you read this and you come to some weird conclusion about Lily. You're like, okay, well, I'm gonna do that, right? But I've seen people right that are like, oh, I'm a pyro pup, so if you don't support Cinder, you're a horrible person. Well, that's not true, right? I don't have to support Cinder. I don't wish her any ill will, though. Like, just she can do her own thing. That's fine. Like, she'll exist on her end. I'm gonna exist on my end. I muted her. I don't follow her anymore. Like, she's doing her thing, right? That's fine. She's gonna do her thing. I'm gonna do mine. The big thing here, chat, the big takeaway from this is she always deserved a second chance through her actions, right? With enough time and enough proper actions taken, you can always get a second chance. But in the way that she did this, it was not it. This was not the way to do it. People will continue to support her. It's already evident, right? She will continue to be extremely successful. She will make tons of money, right? She is going to continue to go on and be successful. I think that often in the VTuber community, we call out morality as being important, which morality is important, right, chat? And I think sometimes there's a little bit too much emphasis put on it. But I think in this case, this is a true case of morality being very important to what you're going to support, right? And in this case, you can support her if you want to, If you want to support her or not, that's totally fine. She's going to be successful. You're not going to be able to stop that, But I encourage you, if you don't want to support her, go do your own thing. If you want to support her, do your thing, Like, nobody's here to stop you. I just think my biggest takeaway is when you make a mistake, you're supposed to apologize for it and improve yourself, right? As a human being, as a normal person, right? That is what we're looking for, right? You grow, you get that second chance, right? I don't think that, sadly, she ever got to that point. I don't think that she has learned how to properly manage herself. I don't think that she's dealt with her insecurity issues. And I really do feel like that, unfortunately, she's still just extremely immature. And I do hope that she learns from her mistakes. And I do hope that everybody that does support her will continue to be able to support her and nothing goes wrong, right? I really hope that she doesn't let them down again. Because as things stand, my faith in her is literally like negative 5,000. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not good. So, but I'm going to respectfully give you this opinion because, again, chat, whatever you feel like you want to do, just do it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to really be discussing Cinder anymore after this. So I do not want to see more people talking about Cinder coming in chat when we're talking about elves. Like, why are you talking about Cinder? Like, I'm ready to move on. I think you're all ready to move on. I mean, she's moved on. The Pyro Pups have moved on. I think it's time until maybe more comes out.